29. Page 29. Como encender el fuego de la esperanza. How to ignite the fire of hope. Como encender el fuego de la esperanza. Como encender we'll look at Enneagram type number 4. Background sound you hear is Sita demonstrating her cleverness in bouncing her Kong around because there's stuff inside it, and she's figured out if she throws it, it falls out. Stuff inside, and she does it a lot. Pretty soon she'll get a fork and knife and just cut it open. Anyway, so let's just quickly review 1 through 3 before we move on to 4. What do you know, remember about Enneagram type number 1?
Good.
Gotta be good. Gotta be good.
Pride? Is pride one?
Pride is more for 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twist that. Anger.
Anger. And the interesting thing about a 1 is that they're not aware necessarily of their anger, but it's always it serves, and it comes out in ways that you should do this, you should do that, you should. It's like Sister Mary Redemptor back in grade 6. She was a very angry person. God bless you, Sister Mary Redemptor. I know you're in heaven. But while you were on earth, you were pretty angry, and she was a should. And she could do that because she wore a black nun's veil and walked around with a ruler. Anyway. So that's a 1. 2s.
The helper.
The helper, what were you saying?
Comes after
There's something soft I can throw at you. Yes, the helper, and it does come after 1. And the helper is great, like the 1 is great when they're in their health. And the 2 can be a helper, just like the 1 can, point out the right path, right? When they're healthy. But when a 2 is not healthy, that help becomes attachment and manipulation and pride. You should help me. Look at all I've done for you. Or you should let me help you. Anyway, so that's the helper. Number 3. Charge. Get it done. Right. Achieve. The achiever. Gets it done. Success. What's the problem the 3 encounters, or what's the challenge of the 3?
herself.
Yes, indeed. Can you be more specific?
I don't think so.
Okay. One of my favorite words is specificity. I just like to say it because it's so long. It takes a while. When you work on your doctorate someday, that's what your advisor would say to you. Be more specific. Focus. Doctor types up. So what's the challenge of the 3?
Connect with their emotions or heart.
The 3 is in conflict with their own heart. The 2 is unaware. The 4, as we'll see, is over-aware. But the 3 has this deep underlying conflict with their own heart, their own deep feelings. And so they fall into self-deceit. They fool themselves in thinking that this image is actually me.
No.
Right? And so the real challenge for the 3, and this is where 3 can be healthy and very good in community, is when a healthy 3 knows who they are, it just radiates to others. And they know who that 3 is, but also it helps everybody around them to know who they are. It's like Irenaeus once said back about 1500 years ago, the glory of God is a human being flourishing. The 3, when a healthy state, understands the true meaning of success. and real achievement, and flourishes from the inside out. That's what a 3 is. Okay, enough of 1, 2, 3. Now we're ready to go on to 4. So first we'll see 4 in film, and will be easily spotted. There's lots of movies about 4s. So, are we ready?
Yep.
I didn't like this guy.
I think I read a lot more books because of that.
Excuse me? How do you read so many books?
Well, I don't read.
There's something to personality typing systems that just feels wrong. The concept of categorizing real people into simplified stereotypes feels like another excuse to look at someone not for who they are, but as an archetype in your story. While most personality systems run along with reinforcing this way of viewing others, the Enneagram is in the business of tearing it all down. It is not interested in patting you on the back for fitting into a vague but pleasant-sounding personality box titled Empath. It's more concerned with showing you the box you've already put yourself in, a box you are blind to like the smell of your own home. Think of Enneagram types less as personalities and more like behavioral patterns that can lead to self-destructive tendencies if left unchecked. The Enneagram makes it hard to view the world as background characters in service to you, the main character, when it claims that you are just as unaware as everyone else. In fact, there's an Enneagram type whose main strategy is precisely just to be seen as unique and different from others. That one's called Type 4. There is no shortage of characters in storytelling that fit this mold. Starving artists, social misfits, and hopeless romantics, all longing for some distant dream or love that tragically never have. It's been done so much that it's a trope, but it's a trope for a reason. There is a surprisingly consistent through line between Davy Jones and Lady Bird and Robin Williams' character in Dead Poets Society. And the fact that their journeys, failings, and triumphs mirror so closely to the descent and growth of Type 4, growth meaning that they stop being a trope and instead become an authentic person, tells me there might be something to walk away with here. So without anything left to preface, thank you for watching, and let's begin. Type 4s like to familiarize themselves with emotional depths that others would prefer to avoid. On some level, they feel fundamentally different and have a habit of comparing themselves with others as a way to quantify their uniqueness. Sometimes this leaves them feeling superior, other times less than themselves. Their keen awareness of what's missing both within themselves and in their environments motivates them to fill in the metaphorical hollows and cracks they find throughout their lives with what they find meaningful.
Poetry, beauty, romance, love. These are what we stay alive for.
It's easy for life to feel like an unraveling story where they're the main character. But while other types would prefer to view themselves as heroes, 4s have a tendency to view themselves as tragedies. Because they like to feel their emotions intensely, they can easily be absorbed into melancholic feelings that they struggle to let go of as they overly focus on what's missing in their lives, which can make them seem sensitive and overly dramatic.
I lost my hand! I lost my bride! Johnny has his hand! Johnny has his bride! You want me to take my heartbreak, put her away and forget?
For other types, it's well known that their greatest strengths can also double as their greatest weaknesses. But in the case of Type 4, it's almost as if they actively use their strengths against themselves. It's not that they can feel and accept deeper emotions, it's that they feel as though they must, believing they are somehow deserving of it, almost out of a sense of shame.
She's the best human being in the world. Which is why she left me, of course.
Shame is actually an emotion that is not unfamiliar to 2s, 3s, and 4s. The types that are grouped together solely for the fact that they all have a sense of shame for simply existing. 2s are in conflict with their sadness as they strive for a likable and pleasing image, and 3s are out of touch with their sadness as they create an image of success and achievement. But 4s overexpress their sadness through presenting an image of someone who is unique and special because they're suffering.
No matter how hard I tried, I was always the odd man out, the last one picked.
Screw them.
That's where problems come up for this type. They can overdo their focus on their feelings and their idealization of what's missing to the point where they solely experience life through the emotions that come from constantly comparing their flawed sense of self with what's absent, which is when they engage in their emotional passion. Envy. Each type on the Enneagram has an emotional passion, a sort of vice that they unconsciously engage in that's motivated by a psychological wound which creates a trap for the personality. And in the case of type 4, it's envy. It's an envy where the 4 deepens their identification with their disappointment in the present for not comparing to their romanticized expectations, which in turn only brings about even more feelings of melancholy and inferiority. To stave away fears of being permanently broken, 4s channel the painful lack they feel into a soulful yearning for something outside themselves that they personally idealize, believing that having it will finally make them whole. This could be a romantic partner, a career, a lifestyle, or the grass that is ever so greener on the other side. So long as it's something that is idealized by the 4 in hopes that it will fulfill that broken and or missing piece of themselves that they've been longing for so long, it can become their fixation. As you will see in this video, envy controls type 4 in some surprising and devastating ways. Ways that actually separate type 4 into 3 very different subtypes that aren't understood well enough by most. There are stoic 4s that internalize their suffering from others in an attempt to overcome their envy. These are known as self-preservation 4s. Sad 4s that present their suffering to others by overindulging their envy. These we're going to refer to as social 4s. And there are angry 4s that project their suffering onto others by transforming their envy into competition and vengeance, aka 1-to-1 4s. Actually, let's start off with them by diving into the unhealthy characters. When type 4s descend into extreme levels of unhealth, the passion of envy consumes them to the point where it almost becomes the entire person, only leaving behind traces of someone who used to exist, but now has been cast aside to make room for the pain they're afflicted with. If 4s experience life through their emotions, unhealthy 4s solely experience life through suffering, both self-inflicted and projected. An example of the latter would be Salieri from the not-so-historically accurate cinematic masterpiece, Amadeus.
I'm forgiven of tender heart, you creature.
He's a composer who dedicates his life and music to God in return for historical greatness, only to discover he exists at the same time as Mozart. And soon after meeting him and recognizing his musical genius, Salieri becomes convinced that God is torturing him through his rival's incredible talent. In his confession to a priest, he says,
He gave me that longing, and then made me mute.
which is a line I believe captures the painful awareness that 4s feel. That something integral to who they are is missing or broken and possibly forever out of reach, cursing them to the outskirts of their desires. Of course, though, it is within reach. Salieri is an accomplished artist with high honors, serving as the court composer. He is respected and recognized for his art, but just not as much as Mozart. And it's this constant comparison that drives him even further from ever finding that deeper connection to himself and God.
From now on, we are enemies.
To avoid feeling the core sense of inferiority that plagues type 4, 1-to-1 4s transform their sense of envy into competition in an effort to prove themselves superior to others.
Before I leave this earth, I will laugh at you.
Sounds similar to type 3, right? I'm not a mistake, I'm better than you. The difference here is that 3s will shapeshift their way into the image of what they think others will like and admire, while 1-to-1 4s cling to their identity, revering even their more unlikable, darker sides, believing them to not only be what sets them apart from others, but what makes them superior, almost demanding to be accepted for who they feel they already are. It may feel like a way around their pain, but as we see with unhealthier 1-to-1 4s like Salieri, it's an unconscious condemnation to it. He claims to be a devout lover of music to the extent that he equates great compositions to the voice of God.
God will see you through this little man.
Yet gets so caught up in superficialities and people-pleasing behavior, and in true unhealthy character fashion, destroys what he loves and becomes what he despises, entombing himself in his own despair.
I speak for all mediocrities in the world. I am their champion. I am their patron saint.
This is the common theme of unhealthy type 4 characters. entombing oneself in suffering. If unhealthy social force could take this metaphorical theme and turn it into a literal reality, they would, and in storytelling, they do. Social fours are said to be the subtype to focus the most on their sense of inferiority, often revisiting the past to submerge themselves in their pain and express it to others in hopes of being loved and rescued from their deficiencies. In Synecdoche, New York, Philip Seymour Hoffman's character turns this internal fixation into a physical reality through his play, by recreating vulnerable moments in his life and rehearsing them for years on end. Everything revolves around how pained and misunderstood he is. Even the play's stage, a one-to-one replica of New York City, is a monument dedicated to his insignificance as he buries himself alive in the literal dramatization of his subjective experience.
I will have someone play me to delve into the murky, cowardly depths of my lonely being. And he'll get notes too, and those notes will correspond to the notes I truly receive every day from my God.
Now, the first two characters I dove into were both creative artists. Therefore, every type Ford must be artistically inclined, right? Since Fords fixate on envy over identification with emotions, a pervading sense of longing, and a flawed self-image, it's only natural for a number of them to have a tendency towards artistic expression, especially given their fear of being misunderstood. What better way to be seen and validated for your emotions than through the arts? But it's important to remember that it's a tendency and not a full-blown consistent trait. A tendency that can actually run antithetical in some ways to self-preservation force, the Stoic subtype that focuses on internalizing their suffering instead of projecting or expressing it. They do this by unconsciously hoping that enduring pain and hardships while never complaining about it somehow makes them special.
I'm not like the others. I don't always like what I have to do, but I know I have to be the one to do it.
Think Davy Jones, a pirate so in love with the sea that he carves out his own heart and hides it from the world in return for a promised love. He'll stoically deny his suffering in public, but indulge in it when he's alone. This fixation on silent suffering is why self-preservation forwards remain the most mistyped type on the Enneagram. Their stoic resolve and ambition to stick through hardships for end goals can make them seem like 1s and 3s, while their compassion for those who openly suffer can make them even look like 2s. One of the best examples of a self-preservation 4 who descends into unhealth would be T.E. Lawrence in Lawrence of Arabia.
He damn well has. Certainly it has. Well, what's the treatment?
SND. What is it? Suck my... That's suck my... That's like for real. Okay.
The trick, William Potter, is not minding that it hurts.
He spends most of the runtime internalizing his suffering, both emotional and physical, without ever complaining, and in some scenes, you can really see it feed his ego and elevate him to some messiah-like figure.
I've heard talk. They can only kill me with a golden bullet.
And yet in other scenes you can peer through the cracks and see the suffering and torment he hides behind his stoic and at times even carefree facade. It's borderline masochistic. His silent suffering is fully taken advantage of, and it pushes him far beyond his breaking point, leaving behind a broken man who is at best misunderstood and at worst disgraced. I'm sure you're noticing a pattern here. Unhealthy 4 characters are tragedies that are hell-bent to prove it. They have been broken, cheated, overlooked, and now make it their mission to embody their misfortune, both stoically and vengefully. But what happens when 4s get what they want? The very thing they've been longing and romanticizing for so long. What then? If you notice, none of these movies ask that question. They'll show the unhealthy pursuit of what they envy, but not the actual attainment of it. And if they do, it's just until Act 3 where the hero rises up and defeats them. So the question remains, who are Type 4 characters when they get what they've been missing for all of their lives? When they find that missing piece?
In our theater, this cat I was telling you about. My old middle school band teacher, Mr. Gardner, call me Joe.
In Soul, Joe has been stuck his entire life wanting to be a performing jazz pianist and finds little success beyond teaching band and school. It's only when he gets a chance at making it big, what he's always envied, that he feels like his life has finally started. And then he dies. In the afterlife, when Joe sees that his entire life wasn't filled with passionate displays of performing music, but just mundane moments, he says,
My life was meaningless.
This brings us to the problem of meaning. When it comes to type 4, the contents of meaning matter less than its mechanics. It's cyclical. There's a sense of meaningless pervading them, so they envy something they deem personally meaningful. They attain it, but discover the meaningless still remains, so they find something else to envy. And on it goes until eventually they cling to the last thing they can find meaning in, meaninglessness.
Nothing matters.
Basically, this meaning cycle can lead fours down an unconscious spiral into unhealthy territory, much like the characters we just visited. But as we will see, there is another path, a way for fours to break out of the cycle and actually find wholeness. What I find especially fascinating is that the way actual type 4s grow and find healing in their lives is reflected through the journey that fictional average 4 characters go on, regardless of whether or not the writers even know what the Enneagram is. Remy feels different and misunderstood from the others in his colony, but seeks to express himself as a chef, believing that finally being one will remedy the sense of shame he has from being a rat.
I know I'm supposed to hate humans, but there's something about them. They don't just survive, they discover, they create.
Ladybird is tired of her strained relationship with her mother and by extension her suburban teenage life, and longs for a meaningful lifestyle in New York.
I want to go where culture is, like New York, or at least Connecticut or New Hampshire, where writers live in the woods.
Schools anyway.
And Joe just wants to play piano.
It's my reason for living, and I'm not backed up the same way.
All of them start their journeys with an internal sense of lack, a void that they are trying to fill with something that they personally believe is meaningful. The majority of the runtime of these movies is spent on the conflict that comes about as they try to attain what they envy. But then they get exactly what they've been envying and feel nothing. Remy's cooking is praise and attention, Ladybird moves to New York after graduating, and Joe makes it back to his body in time for the gig and kills it.
What's wrong, Teach?
I thought I'd feel different.
Envy is a landmark type 4s use to find themselves in relation to what they long for. The distance is always dramatic. But should their envy be satisfied, should they finally get that missing piece, they are faced with another choice. Latch their envy onto another landmark and continue the cycle, or discover who they are without one entirely.
I heard this story about a fish. He swims up to this older fish and says, I'm trying to find this thing they call the ocean. The ocean, says the older fish. That's what you're in right now. This, says the young fish, this is what I want is the ocean. See you tomorrow.
Think of Type 4's awareness as a microscope that peers down into pre-selected samples of their self-perceived worst parts. There's the all-consuming void within, and those are the cracks that keep growing as I failed to keep it together. The issue here is that while microscopes make for great tools for in-depth research, they make for horrible glasses. In other words, Type 4s grow when they stop identifying with what's missing through constant self-comparison with what they envy, and instead ground themselves in the truth of the present. Narrative, and then truth. Remy realizes he's always been a chef and fully able to express himself as someone who isn't traditionally accepted. Ladybird recognizes how special her life back at home had been, and Joe goes home to play piano as he remembers his life as meaningful as it truly is. And it makes me cry every time. A lot of these stories end by dipping into the theme of healthy Type 4 stories. When Type 4s swap the microscope for glasses and recognize how special and already whole they are, it allows them to express that wholeness to others in ways that bring them what they've been missing in their own lives. Remy cooks ratatouille for ego, Joe gives a new soul a reason to live, and this is the beautiful potential of Type 4.
Is your roof over 20 years old?
No, that's Type 4. Your thoughts, questions? Yes.
It comes after 3.
Thank you for that. I've always wondered. Now I know. Any other thoughts?
Really relatable.
How
I
so?
think I tested it and it was like one of my wings. And the one part where it's expectation versus reality, to fill in that void. And when you finally get it, it's never exactly what you wanted to. So you jump on the next thing and the next thing, never really knowing why the undercurrents of it. It's why you keep hopping trains.
Right.
Yeah.
So how does a force stop hopping trains?
Gratitude, presence.
Yes. Yeah. And discovering what I would call the gift of envy.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean by that?
The contrast, no?
Not so much. What I mean by that is this, and I'll speak as a 4, with strong 1 tendencies, but still I think I'm a 4. When you are hopping trains, you're envying this, you're wanting that. At least in my case, what happened was this. It finally became so bad when I dropped out of school, ended relationships, that was it. I realized something, that underneath envy is a legitimate and good desire for the thing that you're envying. Right? So, if somebody plays piano beautifully well, much better than I can, if I focus on the envy of that, I get sidetracked from the desire to be a good musician, which is what underneath envy is. The desire for the thing that you're envying. And when I discovered that, and then could just relax into it, say, wait a minute, I just want to be a good musician, and I'll try my very best to be the very best I can be.
That's good advice, yeah.
So envy, like everything, all the other compulsions in the Enneagram, underneath each is a particular gift to be seen and embraced. In each case, I believe it's a desire in some way. The fear that envy basically is, if they got something I don't, I'm not going to look as good, I'm not going to be as good because I'm wanting that. The fear is what ruins us, I believe. But when we begin to see the desire underneath is good, so how can I pursue that desire so that I can be whatever it is? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I get the image of the train again, but it's splitting in 2 paths. You can choose to really focus on that, or choose to focus on the healthy desire, why it happened in the first place.
Yeah. And I think from the time we're little, we're taught desire is bad.
Right.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
And so we live that out. I shouldn't want this. I shouldn't want that. But underneath it all, I believe, God gives us our desires to pursue. Any other thoughts?
Because we all have our gifts. And if we didn't desire them, we wouldn't pursue them, and we wouldn't be getting them. And I've always loved that story about the fish at the ocean. You're already in it.
Yeah.
And how often the blank looks like with that.
A fellow at the retreat center, I didn't know any of this terminology then. He's an incredibly good artist, both sculpture and painter. And yet, he could make himself so miserable. He painted his room like dark green, almost black, papered the windows over, and would hide for like weeks. And finally, after a year, I had to tell him to leave, because, but I get to see what Andy was now. I didn't understand it all. It's like, well, why don't you just come out and be fun with it, be happy with this, come on out and watch a movie.
So why couldn't Andy do that?
That shame.
Shame's
Yeah. And
2, 3s, and 4s.
he seemed to address the shame with this intense poor me. So you couldn't offer him anything helpful, because he'd come up with a bigger poor me no matter what you offered him. And,
how did the story of Andy end?
he went in for mental health treatment, which I thought was a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the darkness, you could say, that the 4 spirals down into. For me, I ended up in the fetal position and couldn't move.
Yeah.
And my uncle, who's a psychiatrist, this is at the age of 27, had to come literally pick me up off the floor and carry me away.
Yeah, that's,
I just couldn't function.
yeah. So anyway, it's nice to have an insight now to what Andy was dealing with, because I never really understood him at all.
Yeah, and that's the point of this, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, to understand the soul,
Yeah,
to understand, you know, certainly to understand the personalities of those we're with and our own especially, but to understand even beneath that what the soul is saying through our personality.
yeah. Oh, cool, thank
I
you.
like how it painted, I didn't know that four was so dark with depth, and I kind of appreciate how they showed the many layers of darkness and depths that four can go through. And one part that stood out was meaningless. Sometimes when you tried everything and you're just like, I give up, I'm a victim, life is meaningless, what now? And then you wallow in that victim,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't even want to try anymore, so I totally relate to that.
Yeah, yeah, there is a kind of scariness in scary darkness in a four that, yeah, it's important to recognize that. Any other thoughts? Okay. So tomorrow night we'll hear Richard Rohr speak about fours, and yeah, we'll close with this song. I listen to you. When I listen to you. When I hear your voice. When I hear your voice. I hear the voice of God. I hear the voice of God. When I look in your eyes, when I look in your eyes, when I see your face, when I see your face, I see the face of God. I see the face of God. When I open to you, when I open to you, when I touch your heart, when I touch your heart, we touch the heart of God. We touch the heart of God. We see the face of God. We see the face of God. We hear the voice of God. We hear the voice of God. At the close of this day, we give you thanks for your great love. Help us to see and hear and open to you, to our own souls, and to one another. May it be so.